There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breaking out of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have a slightly different guest. So she's never been on Broadway. She's never been in a production of Cats. However, she is incredibly funny and a comedian and the host of Sports Tabata on YouTube and had a very surreal experience seeing Cats and is here to discuss that experience with me. So welcome, Meghan Hanley, and thank you for joining me.
Mike, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be here. I'm flattered. I mean, I've seen the roster of guests, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are people going to be saying when they hear this episode? They're like, who's this lady?
Who is this person? That's the way I feel with me. Like, who is this guy who has no experience on Broadway, no experience in performing, and now has 40 to 50 episodes of Cats content. So qualifications are usually thrown out the window on this podcast. And we're going to go in. I want to start because I want to get to, you saw the 2016 revival, and I want to get to that. Before, I have to know, what was your experience with the show before? Are you someone that saw the movie in high school as a kid? Or I've heard so many various different ways of how people have been introduced to Cats. And I'm curious what yours was prior to 2016.
Well, so I grew up on Long Island, so very close to the city. And I feel like, in my mind, I thought everybody got advertised this hard for Broadway, but it's like, no, of course.
The commercial. So you saw that commercial.
The commercial, like, we would see that commercial all the time. And I remember even as kids going like, what is that? Like, and you're a kid, like, you think like even as a kid, you'd be like, wow, that looks magical. Like, no, I remember being a kid and being like, that's somebody's uncle in a cat suit. Like, what is this show? Like, even as children, we were like, well, I don't get it. It's people. What is this? Like, being so mystified from the beginning, just going, what is this? And we'd see the commercials all the time, like, see it now, remember it forever. And we're like, wow, that's a bold statement.
Yeah, it is crazy. It is like a little bit of like the I think every city has their personal attorney injury, or like the personal law injury place where if you're from that town, you know who that group is. And that's the commercial you see. I know New York's was Celino and Barnes for a while.
And Barnes, yeah.
This feels like it's a little bit of that. Like, if you grew up in that time frame in the New York region, you remember this commercial. But did you ever go see the show? Like, or did you see the commercial?
We just saw the commercial all the time. And we were, as kids too. So it was like my parents and my aunts and uncles, for some events, they all went into the city and saw Les Miserables. And we were obsessed with it as kids. Like, we were so insulted that they did not invite us. And we're like, we're adults and we're going to Broadway and we're not bringing you with us. And they thought we were too young to appreciate it. So we got the double disc. We had the cassette tapes, eventually, moved up to the CD. And we, as kids, became obsessed with Les Miserables. We learned the whole play. We would sing the whole play. Like, I remember getting like in fights with my sister. And like at one point being like, I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't, just like Jean Valjean. Like, we were so into it. And then my parents, finally, my mom looked into it, that they had these student tickets available. They were like $15 as long as you could show a student ID. And they were like the nosebleed seats all the way at the top. So we all went in and we saw it. And that was it. Like, the Broadway experience was so incredible. And then after that, we would sort of go each year around Christmas time. We'd go in for a dinner and then we'd go see a show. So like Les Mis is the big one, and then Phantom was the next one. And we kind of went from there. And like all this time, like Cats was out. But for us, I don't know. We never went. And I think we were I guess curious is the right word, because it's very fitting for the Cats. We were always just like, what is this show? And even as like young, being so like, I don't get it, and sort of just like laughing at it. And then I think that's really what carried into when we finally went to see it. It was with this giddy anticipation now of being adults. I mean, like, we're doing it. We're finally seeing Cats. It's happening. Like,
and so you went almost every year to a different show, but Cats never made the cut.
No.
Never made the cut. Okay.
Never made the cut.
And I don't. It's an interesting one as having, once I moved to New York and I started to be like, oh, wow, there's all kinds of stuff you can go to. There's just like a laundry list of different shows. And it's like, it is a thing when you come in and travel. And when my family comes and visits, like, okay, what's the like 1 or 2 shows they're going to go see? And it's not usually, Cats doesn't usually make that list. So it's like, I kind of get it. But so now you fast forward to 2016 and someone in the cast, which is how we got introduced. And Colin, and Colin's going to be in it. And so you're like, we're going to go support our friend and we're going to go see Colin and we're going to get to finally, what was the tagline? I forget the tagline. It was going to be
remember it forever. See it now, remember it forever, and we knew going into it. So I still didn't even know that much about it. I knew really like the very basic plot line. And I just decided, you know what, this is probably going to be pretty weird and it's going to be kind of wild and we're going to get pretty drunk. Like we were like I've never done like edibles or anything, but we got into that theater and I was like, I wish I think this would really like sitting there with like the moonlit background, like the pictures that I'd seen of it from like over the years. So it was like sort of that double thing of being like, not only are we seeing the show, we're seeing someone in it that we're so excited about, but also it's like, oh my gosh, it's the show we've been hearing about since we were kids, especially on Long Island, because we knew people that would obsessively go see it. I think that was the thing too, is like we knew of people that saw it all the time and it was just so almost like confusing, like what is going on here? And so we got there to the theater and I went up and I got a double Pinot Grigio in a Cat's cup. My double wine, and we all got doubles because we're like, all right, we don't want to have to get up till intermission. So we got to get doubles. It costs like $40 probably.
Exactly. Yeah. It's an expensive drink.
My double Pinot Grigio. And then it was like the music started and we all like got the chills being like, here we go. Like, let's jump in. And I just said I was in it. I was in the Cats experience and I had a great time.
I want to hear your loose plot that you said How would you describe that loose plot? Going in, what did you, like you said, I kind of know the general idea. Give me that description.
I guess it was just essentially that it was all these cats came together one night and they decided who was like going to get resurrected. And then we were seeing like the audition. We were seeing Cats audition for that.
That's pretty much it.
That's all I knew. And
get some wine and let's go. Yeah. I'll never forget it.
And I didn't really even want to know anything else. I was like, let's just know this is going to be kind of a very unique, interesting experience. And let's just give into it. Let's just see what happens and let's go along for the ride. And, I remember like we're seeing it and then it opens up, and then all of a sudden, the cats are in the audience. And I was like, oh, we've heard about this. And here they are, and you're like half laughing, half like, what is like, this is cool, but what's going on? And then you get like 15 minutes in, you're like, oh, this is going to be the whole show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
you knew way more than I did going in. When I went the first time, I knew that it was about cats, that they were going to be acted as cats, and that I would know memory.
Yes. Oh, that too, of course. And then
that was it. I knew it had been on for 40 plus years, and it was a show I probably should see since I'm in New York and they were reviving it. Yeah. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know any loose plot. I didn't know the loose plot of like, oh, we're going to kill one at the end. I didn't know any of that stuff until about halfway through, in intermission, I stopped to read. I was like, all right, I got to, someone catch me up. And I got very distracted because then I saw the old Deuteronomy sitting on stage, which is a very bizarre thing. I don't know if you've noticed that.
That's right.
Very crazy part of that. So I still walked out and still didn't know what I saw. So I'm happy that you got, not only you had a loose idea of what you're going to see, you also got a very strong message to get the drink ahead of time, which I was not given.
Yes.
I was not given that message, and it was a matinee at 1:00 on a Saturday, and I didn't day drink for the show. So I did Colin tell you anything going in, or did you not want to know?
I think we didn't know too much, and then I don't even know if I knew like the cat he was playing. I guess I don't know. I don't even remember if I knew I was looking for him, but I didn't I didn't even know all of the
it's
cats'
so easy
names.
to differentiate them all, like in makeup
think,
and costume.
I can't remember if we were told who he was playing, or it was like, let's look for him, or if somebody said like he's going to be the cat he's going to be wearing a vest.
The vest, yeah, cat in a
vest. And then once we sort of figured out from there, then you're sort of doing the half where you're watching the show, but you're also like, you're looking out for your friend. You're like, oh, there he is, and
for everyone listening, Colin played Skimbleshanks.
Skimbleshanks, the railroad cat.
Yeah, the railroad cat.
Great.
And yes, and he wears a vest, and he got very mad at me because he did not agree with all of my interpretations of his cat.
So we had
a very nice conversation about all the things I got wrong. But I thoroughly enjoyed getting that to hear and have the record straight. But I still think he's kind of the creepy Uncle Cat.
It's so weird. I don't get that vibe from Skimbleshanks at all. I loved that number. I thought, well, of course, I'm biased to it too, because I was like, oh my God, this is so fun. But I love like the train, and of course for us too. So it's like my uncle we have a whole family that worked on the railroad, so like we felt like it all came together. We're like, of course, Colin is the railroad cat because we have railroad in our family, and then like he's on top of the train, and the number's so fun, and I loved him. I thought he was such a fun cat. I thoroughly enjoyed him, and it was such a fun.
It is a great number. I am traumatized because that light hit me in the face, and I was not thrilled about that. And that was what we talked about because I was blinded for like a good 30 seconds after. But
this is how much. I mean, this is how out of it. Like going into the show, like we didn't put it together. Like I had no idea who was going to be the cat that was picked, and at the end, we're like, how did we not see that coming? Like Memory is the song everyone knows.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, how did we?
Yeah. You were sitting there taking bets at intermission on who's going to win.
We're like, because that's the thing too. I think it's like one of those things. I'm a big. This is going to be a bizarre parallel put together, but I'm a huge Springsteen fan, and I've gone to some of his concerts that have gone on for like 4 hours, and people are like, "How could you sit at a concert for 4 hours?" And the whole thing is Bruce is like, "Well, once you're in it, you lose track of like time and space. You're just in it." And I was like, "Oh, that's also kind of how I felt during Cats. Like once I was in it, I was like, who is going to survive? Who's going to get reincarnated? Like I was part of this world. Like it worked. I was." Transformed into this cat world, and I'm a dog person.
That's kind of what they expect. That's kind of what they try to build. Like from what I hear from the cast is that they do want that experience, but they also want it to be that they're just doing their thing, and you're lucky you get to watch. So it's like you're part of the experience, but also just like, yeah, I mean, you're just here. We're still going to go about our business. I want to hear more about your experience with the show. So they jump out at you in the beginning.
Yeah.
Are you how far into your double are you? Are you ready for that? Because I was unprepared.
Well, I knew that was going to be happening. That was
okay.
That I think we knew from when we were kids. We were told those are some more of the details that the cats actually, okay, I'm just remembering this now. I think as a kid, and because you're also hearing this as a kid, we would hear the cats are in the aisles. So in my head, I thought they were going to be like cats falling from the ceiling. Like I thought they were really like, it was full out cats everywhere. And it's like, yeah, they are around and you see them pop up, but they creep around and then they go to the stage. I thought I was really going to be like, oh, there's a cat on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Because anyone who's been around like regular cats, like you never know. Cats, they appear. They sleep on your head. I mean,
yeah. So what was your kind of, Colin doesn't even really come. I mean, he's in throughout the whole thing because they're all dancing at all times, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what was like in the beginning? It's like, okay, here it's cat and then it's a cat and then it's a cat. Like, are you all going like, that's my pick? Are you just mesmerized watching? Are you a little too drunk to even know what's going on? Like what was that 2016 version?
I think it was probably all of that at once because you're taking it all. It's definitely that feeling. The beginning, like the first, I'd say 10, 15 minutes, the opening thing, you're sort of on this high from, you've been boozing / the excitement of like, oh my gosh, is this for real? Are we really doing this? Like, this is hilarious. And then like Colin's in it and there are the cats and they're singing their songs. And it's also this combination of you're like, somebody wrote this? Like, this is wild. Like, this is like on another level of like, of cat, the cat world. Like, and you're picturing cat people in your life. And then you get like 20 minutes in, you're like, oh, we're still here.
Yeah.
Okay. But then, and this was a turning point for me. It was like, you're still here. Because then you're watching some of it and you're like, okay, all right. And then I feel like then like when Rum Tum Tugger comes out, then that's like one of the all of a sudden he's out there and then you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Like, is Rod Stewart in the house? And then you start realizing, oh, there's a lot of different personalities coming out here and everybody's going to have a little bit of something, and that same kind of thing where then you're back in it. You just give in. You're like, don't even fight this. Just
embrace it.
Just be in that junkyard with them and embrace it. It's.
So now that you've experienced it, how would you give your new found, here's what happened? How would you describe it to the next person that's going to go see it post-pandemic when it goes back on tour or when it goes back on Broadway and, for another 50 years?
I would say that the tagline, see it now, remember it forever, is accurate.
That's it.
And
that's the story.
People should go see it. And because even after we all went out for, we had some drinks before, some drinks during, had some drinks after. And the same kind of thing. I was so happy I saw it. I was so happy to have that experience. It was so unique. And it was so different than anything else I've seen on Broadway. And again, that somebody was like, we're going to do this. We're going to put this together. We're going full out with the costumes. We got these spandex outfits. And everybody that's in it is so committed. Everyone is so committed to their characters and to the show that, I'm sure people that are in the show must have an off night where they really aren't feeling it. But they got to get up there and they got to get into it. And it comes across. They really bring you into this other world. And I was so pleasantly surprised. I really loved it.
That they do go through Felinity School, I think is how they call it, where they they get taught how to be cats. They learn and practice cat movements. So they're bringing it. It's the pinnacle of, maybe not cats, but in general, like you're on Broadway, like you're at the peak of this skill. Like this is the best of the best. And so I do, like, that was one thing I did walk out mesmerized and blown away. But then I was like, how did they do some of that dance? Like those dance numbers, and how did that take some incredible athleticism?
Oh my gosh. The dancing's incredible. And it's so many different types of dancing, it's each cat's got its own thing. And then they sort of, move together and they got so much going on. Yeah, it's very impressive. Very impressive.
I'm going to tell you some theories and I want you to tell me if you picked up on it at all.
Oh, okay.
So the white cat, Victoria.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Her dance number is her coming of age.
Okay. I can see that.
You can see that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's very pure.
Yeah.
She's really like the ballerina.
The ball's actually an orgy.
Oh, sure. Definitely. I mean,
got it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I will say go on. And I'll give you a big takeaway of mine after. Yeah.
Well, then we'll go to the next one, which is the two cats that sing the song McCavity both have been in abusive relationships with McCavity.
Yeah. Are still in. Yeah.
Still in. Yeah. Still. Okay. So none of this is surprising.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So that's, again, you want to see it as a child, and this is the undertone of it. What was your take? What was you were ready to say?
Yeah, I would say, you were saying it's, it's a giant orgy. I would say, when, as I was going through this of like, which cat did I think would be my pick for it, as you're really going through it, I'm like, you know what? A lot of these cats, I think they're pretty happy with themselves. Like, I don't even think they want to be reborn as someone new. I think they're pretty proud of themselves.
So that is an argument for a bunch of them, is that they don't think it's their time, but they're going to take the stage because they get the opportunity to take the stage.
Yes, of course they're showing up because it's the place to be, and they want to be picked, but because they want to be chosen for something. But I don't think they really want the new life because they love who they are. They're pretty psyched about it. And a lot of them seem also like younger cats for the most part, so it's not really their time.
Which it depends on how you examine the show.
Oh,
if it's the angle of who's the most worthy to die,
Okay.
then there are a couple choices. There's the older cats. There's Gus. There's Grizabella, who's the one who actually does die. There's potentially old Deuteronomy, who's supposed to be making the decision. Like, you can make arguments for a lot of cats. I've legitimately made these arguments.
Yes.
If you look at it like a competition of just like who's performing for their spot to win and whose performance is best, does that change your opinion then?
Yes, because I think that's how, when I saw it, I would have went by, who's my favorite? So like, that's my favorite. So then you should be the one chosen.
Yeah.
But in a way, it's
for
like,
you?
Skimbleshanks, of course.
Of course. Let's take Skimbleshanks out of it. Who was the other? Who was your next favorite?
Well, do you want to know my pick, or do you want to know?
I want to know that if you were judging the performances on which was the best performance, and it's it's a little bit skewed because it's not just like which actual actor gave the best performance. It's like what their songs are different. Yeah. They're all kind of unique. So it's like what resonated with you most.
That's why, I did love Skimbleshanks because I loved it. Just was so fun, and then the train and all that stuff I loved that. It's tough because I feel like at the time when we saw it, I loved Rum Tum. I thought he was so great, and I loved that number. And as I was preparing for this and watching a lot of stuff back, I was like, I dislike him so much.
So the rock star kind of got you in the moment, but now you're just like, God.
Yeah. Which I guess is appropriate. In the moment, I thought, he was like such a scene stealer. I thought he was great. I thought it was flashy. I didn't really expect it. I feel like leading up to it, you kind of were like, oh, like you have like Victoria's coming out. It's like, oh, she's in white and she's doing a ballet number and she's a cat. And then here's this rock star. And that's when I realized, like, oh, there's going to be a lot of different personalities coming out. Like, this is okay. And he was like really needed for the show in that moment. It was great. And I got such a kick out of it. But then when I was rewatching all of it, I was like, oh gosh, no, you should go to therapy and talk out your issues. I think from being in the entertainment business, I'm like, I know too many guys like you. Like, I don't like you at all. I don't want you to be resurrected. I just want you to go.
You can just die if you need to.
You can just
no
die.
resurrection.
You do not get to come back as anybody new. No, him and what's his face, McCavity. I'm like, you guys would have been Me Too'd out of here. I'm done. I don't want your story. But that's also so different when you're going back and you're like watching. It's like anything you see live is not the same.
Oh,
especially at home watching clips and you're not watching them, like you're watching
the 1998 movie on YouTube, basically.
Yeah. Yes. It's not the same thing at all. When you're really in that moment and watching a show and what it does for you in the show.
So you still haven't answered my question. You don't have
I know.
I'm
holding off
not the
here.
Tugger. Okay. We can come back to it. Well, I'll throw it back at you in the rapid fire because you did give an name. It was Skimbleshanks, but I want to do something.
I did name.
I want to do something that I think is going to lose half our listeners, but
I think they're already gone.
I think they left. But I'm excited because
this girl wasn't in the show. She doesn't know what she's talking about.
There is a crossover that we can do that I've been waiting for a while. And you have your show. Tell me about your show, the Sports Tabata.
Sports Tabata? I have a weekly show I put up on my Instagram. I put it up on YouTube. It's called Sports Tabata. It's a 1-minute sports show. Tabata is our high-intensity interval training. They're like short, high-intensity interval training. So I do them as comedy sport intervals. So it's really just 4 jokes about sports that happen that week. They're like weekend update style. They just get fired out. I have a bell. So it's like ding, 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 boom. It's about 45 seconds to a minute.
Around here to use, and I could not find one for this. Because I did watch a bunch of them. If you are a sports fan, they are hilarious. And I was a huge fan of them. So what I want to do is I want to relate the cats to the athlete or just someone in the sports world.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the cat. I'll give you a little bit of like, who they are. Okay. And then I have thought through this as well. So I'll give you my answer.
Okay.
As well.
I will say, I don't know if I have one for all of them.
That's okay. I can fill in the blanks. And I don't think all of mine are very good. So, and I think we're going to probably lose some people. So look these people up if you want to see how accurate we think we are. But let's start with Old Deuteronomy. So he is the one that makes the decision, kind of older cat in charge.
Shaq.
Okay.
Yes.
You kind of, a large cat. I definitely can see that.
He holds court. I feel like Shaq. I feel like Shaq could have a conversation about anything, and he would make it entertaining. He would have his opinion. You'd go, all right, I could see that. I could see that. Even the song at the end where they're singing like "Cats are not dogs." I'm like, I could see Shaq having a random conversation about this, and you would stay for it. You'd be like, what? Cats are not dogs. Go ahead.
Very,
Shaq.
very, very accurate. I went a similar route. I actually said Phil Jackson.
Okay.
Because I felt though like he's supposed to be a little mystic and zen and thoughtful, and like he's supposed to have some powers. And I always got that vibe from Phil Jackson. There's also a theory that Old Deuteronomy is potentially a serial killer, which is a recent theory someone told me. And Phil Jackson, he gives me a little of that vibe sometimes. I probably shouldn't say that. He's one of the most successful coaches ever. But I definitely felt that like old, wise decision maker. He's run a program for a while. He's run the Jellicles for a while. That's the vibe I got. But I like Shaq. Shaq is, I could see that conversation at the end. He could Judi Dench stare at the screen like in the new movie and speak to you. I love it. Let's do Bustopher Jones. This is
perfect, actually. Because I imagine these two cats together. I imagine Bustopher is Charles Barkley and Shaq is Old Deuteronomy, and they're just holding court together, literally. Yep.
I think
talking back and forth.
I think that's spot on. That's actually what I had. I originally had said Eddie Curry for my New York people, but Charles Barkley is definitely the right answer there. What about Gus? So Gus is kind of the older cat that's been, through it all. A lot of people think he should be the one to die. Mm-hmm. So did you have someone for Gus?
Okay, this is just strictly off. So I was watching the movie, and this is just strictly off this look that Gus gave to me. He looked like an old Larry Bird.
So you watched the movie.
Just in this one like sad face he gave, and I was like, oh.
I can see purely on the visual of that is probably pretty accurate. Larry Bird barely talks, so in real life. So
quiet but ferocious.
I went with Tom Brady because I could see Tom Brady on the tail end, like still thinks his career's still going, he's still playing. Mm-hmm. But I could just see him still, like, a lot of people think Gus should be the winner. Tom Brady always puts up a performance, and he's definitely going to be that guy telling all the stories of how he's won everything. So I felt a little Gus there.
Okay, I like that. All right.
What about Tugger, Rum Tum Tugger? The rock star.
Oh, I don't think I had one for him.
I'll give you mine. I had Andre Agassi.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Definitely, probably a lot of talent, very showy, very flashy, especially early in his career.
Yes.
Probably did. Actually, we know he's written about it. I could see Tugger doing a lot of drugs too. At his peak. Kind of just life.
I like that. I would go maybe like Dennis Rodman.
Rodman's very, very good choice too. To do the hair matches and everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's do Mr. Mistopheles. So he's the magical cat.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't.
He's a hard one. I struggle with him a lot.
I don't know.
I kind of took the cop out and just said Magic Johnson.
Oh sure, magical.
He's a magical cat. Okay, we'll move on. I did enjoy this one. There are two kind of like duos in the show. Mm-hmm. So one are the two sisters, the Bombay Arena and Demeter, who sing McCavity's song. And then the other are the two that sing Mungo, Jerry, and Rumple Teaser that sings their song together. Did you come up with anybody for those?
Yes. For Mungo Rumple Tease, I had the Bryan brothers from tennis.
I had the Lopez brothers.
Okay.
From the NBA.
I love the Lopez brothers.
Because I could just see them like fighting the mascots, like Robin Lopez fights all the mascots, and people need to look this stuff up. I hope people are looking this up now.
The Lopez brothers, when one was on the Knicks and one was on the Nets, they wanted to live together and they couldn't because their cats didn't get along.
That's true.
That's a true story. It was like in magazines when they lived in New York. It was in New York Magazine. And I just like, after that, I just like fell in love with them. I'm like, that's because they're just like these big dudes, but that like they both loved their cats and their cats' personalities did not get along. So they could not live together.
I have enjoyed Robin Lopez's long-standing WWF, WWE fighting with the mascots in like every stadium. And so I just think they're fun. They're just a fun group. I had more trouble with Bombay, Rita, and Demeter, but I did have an answer for them.
I did not have an answer for them.
I think they're Stockton and Malone. Oh. They put on an incredible performance, but they have a very rough life. Which would make McCavity Michael Jordan, basically just saying, like, you're going to struggle here in everything you do. But you're going to be good, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be fun to watch and everything, but you're probably not going to win. Okay, I got to do two more. Okay. So let's do Skimbleshanks, who I know you know about.
Yeah, but I don't. Oh, you know what? I don't think I had one for. Oh, wait. Oh, this is kind of just random. Rory McIlroy.
Rory, just because of looks again?
No, he kind of. I don't know. I feel like with the vest or something, it kind of gave me like an Irish, like Scottish vibe.
That's fair. It's interesting you picked a golfer too, because I actually picked Bryson DeChambeau because he does all of his golf, basically like calculating every like fraction of a swing and every yard and every step. But I could just see a Skimbleshanks like being so meticulous about everything he does. And I actually see that with him. Maybe it's just golf. He's a golfer. We've just decided the vest, the way he approaches everything. He's a golfer. Okay, and we have to do Grizabella. The main character.
Course, easy.
Who do you have?
Tonya Harding.
That's so perfect that I'm not even going to say who I had. But Tonya Harding. Okay.
She's had a tough life. She's had a tough life. Yeah. She's a fighter. She's had a tough life.
I think that's perfect. I think that's the right way to end this game. Everyone who's fast forwarded through this part, welcome back. But thank you for humoring me. And
you're welcome.
I had a ton of fun looking up the athletes that I thought this would be. It's an angle that I didn't expect to take, but I'm excited I got to.
I feel like I'm better at that than I'm like, I don't know. I keep looking in depth at these cats and I feel like I'm wrong. The more that's why I was like, when I went to see it, I was like, I'm not even going to question anything. I'm just going to give in. Because the more I look in, I'm like, I'm wrong.
The more I've read, the more I've realized that there is no right answer. There's a lot of wrong answers, and there's a lot of like dotted lines. There's a lot, as I keep saying, there's a lot of this could be this, and every production does it slightly different. So there's no easy way. Like I have trouble a little bit with 2016 because it's the one I actually saw live twice. Okay. But there's like, I don't have a record of it. I don't have like that version. So I'm like, did you do this dance number? Because I basically rely on YouTube, and that's the 1998 movie. Yeah. And that's it. So I'm like, if it's not in that version, then it's either got to be written about online or I'm making it up or hoping and praying. So I do think there is like you don't need to watch too much. That's kind of the point. Mm-hmm. Just go embrace it and enjoy it, which is their show. Yeah. All right, let's do some rapid fire.
Oh, okay.
Which cat would you want to play? Like, which would you, if you got to go on stage and perform, which cat would you want to play?
Well, I feel like my answer for all these is always just Skimbleshanks. He's so fun.
Okay, I'm not going to press on this.
You know what? I think he's so fun because I also don't think that he's like a creepy uncle. Like you think he is. Like in my mind, he's just like this fun cat. I feel like he's fun loving and like everybody likes him. And it's just, he seems like a cool dude.
Yeah.
I like him.
Okay.
So, you know what? Or I think I would like to play Jenny.
Jenny.
Yeah.
I am curious. Did you have, I cut Jenny from our sports quiz because my reference was very obscure. Did you have something for Jenny?
Mine is it's a weird one. My Jenny is Babe Ruth.
Babe Ruth. How'd you come up with that?
Listen, because right when Jenny's all in the initial outfit, it's just like, she's like this big cat. And you're like, what's this big cat going to do? And then she comes out and she pulls out this dance number. And it's like, Babe Ruth, big dude, give me a bat. Yeah. Like a beer in one hand. He's like smoking cigars. You're like, this guy's an athlete. And then it's like, one of the best that's ever played. And his numbers still stand up. Like, this guy can move.
I love that you did this all almost on like what they look like. And I did it all on personality. Because I said
roaring 20s,
no one's going to understand mine. I said the assistant coach of the Philadelphia 76ers, former assistant coach of the Indiana Pacers, Dan Burke, who is basically the guy that's kept these teams in line, but you've never heard his name. And I feel like that's Jenny. She's kind of the cat keeping everyone in order. She's kind of doing all the dirty work. She's around keeping everything moving and the jellicles in line.
Yeah.
But you kind of forget about her performance sometimes until the movie kind of made you not forget the performance. But in general, I was like, it's a really great performance when I watch it back, but it's not the cat I remembered much about the first time I saw it. And that felt like Dan Burke.
Also because, it's tough because she's in the beginning.
Yep.
And that is what happens. You're so caught up in the opening number and getting attuned to what's going on. And then there's so many more cats that it's just easy. You sort of forget.
Yeah. Who was your least favorite cat?
Oh, McCavity.
McCavity. So you don't, okay. Don't like the antagonist. Favorite song. I'm going to take Skimble out because we know that's the answer.
Well, Memory. It's incredible. Memory? It's enough reason that I would say, she gets to come back.
Now, last rapid fire question. We'll get to kind of the final question. As a comedian, did you ever do any stand-up bits about cats?
I did after I saw the show, but they would just bomb because if people didn't know, if people hadn't seen cats, they're like, what the heck?
Do you remember any of them?
I don't remember
them. Because this is the audience. This is the audience for you right now.
I know. I feel like I don't even know if they ever fully got developed because I feel like that's like usually what happens with stand-up is you come up with some ideas, especially right after you see something like a Broadway show, you write it down. It's something I try to do. Comedian Greg Warren had told me sometimes it's hard to come up with jokes, but you go just sit and write down, what did I do this week that was interesting? So seeing cats was something that was very interesting. So I remember like trying to write about the experience. But then if you're doing it in front of an audience that can't give you feedback for it, then you start going like, well, what am I doing? Yeah. And you just sort of bail on it. So I don't even know if the bits ever fully got worked out. I do have a Broadway bit. I do have a Broadway joke if you'd like me to tell it.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
All right. This is an old joke.
This is the audience. This is the group. Because I feel the same way anytime someone asks me about my podcast, and I'm like, yeah, it's about cats. It's about the one wrong one died, and they're like, I've never seen it. And it's like the whole thing's over their head at that point.
Right. Then you can't even. You're it's like, I would have
more
to spend
effort to explain it. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So this is a joke. Actually, I came before COVID when I used to work out on cruise ships. I forgot about this joke because again, it was an old joke. But on cruise ships, you do so many shows and people come back to so many shows. And a lot of the shows are clean shows. So it's a joke that I'm like, what is like every joke I've ever written? So this joke was a joke I wrote about going to see Billy Elliot, the musical. And essentially it was like, big thing Broadway's doing now is they're taking movies and they're turning them into musicals. And I'm like, oh, the reason Billy Elliot worked as a movie was because it was a kid that wanted to be a dancer and his dad didn't want to be a dancer, And I'm like, but then you go see it on Broadway and this kid's like, Dad, I want to be a dancer. And he's like, no, Billy, you can't be a dancer. But what if he goes? What if he shines? And what if he lights up the stage of the lights in the night? And you're like, okay, Dad, I think we know where Billy gets it from. I think he gets it from you. And then there was like a whole other part about like the coal miners. Then it's like, you can't be a dancer. You got to be a coal miner. But then the coal miners come out dancing and you're like, well, I don't know, Billy. These coal miners seem pretty liberal. They probably have benefits. Maybe it's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love
a whole bit about that.
Whole Broadway. I've seen the movie. I've not seen the show of Billy.
It's incredible. So it's so good. It's such a good show. The dancing is. Yeah, that joke was purely just joke-wise because the show was so good. It's incredible. Yeah, the dance
is amazing.
Incredible.
So the $1 million question for this podcast is always, do you think Grizabella is the right choice? And if not, you're going to tell me why Skimbleshanks is your right choice. But I'm ready for it. But who would you pick? And if you're going to pick Grizabella, why would you defend Grizabella?
Grizabella is my number 2. I think she's my number 2 because... One, she truly looks like she's ready to die. She looks like she's been through a lot.
Tonya Harding out there struggling.
She's out there struggling. She just keeps getting up. She keeps lacing up those skates and just keeps, getting slammed back down. And she just has such a sadness about her that even when she's picked as the cat to, come back, she still even looks sort of terrified and sad. Like she's just lost all the joy in her life. And she's someone that I go, okay, like, and plus the song. I mean, she's got the song. Hello. But the other cat that I would choose, my cat, is Gus. I would pick Gus.
You'd pick Gus.
He's a poor old cat with Parkinson's, and he can't even sing his own songs.
Yeah.
And it's like he has an assistant with him. Talking about the old days of the theater, and then he's shaking the whole time. And you're like, oh my God, this poor guy. And he's so sweet. He looks very sweet. I love
that you're really basing this off the 1998 movie.
I am.
And do you know who plays him in the 1998 movie?
I saw it at the end, but I don't remember.
Okay, so it's Sir John Mills.
Okay.
And he is blind and about 90 when he did that performance. Wow. And so the reason he really has an assistant isn't because of Gus. It's because someone had to walk him out there because he couldn't see. And so it's like a very interesting piece of that, of seeing that movie and knowing that, like, because it's usually played by somebody not like that old. Like it's played by somebody who's going to also dance, because they're supposed to play Buster for Jones and then usually another cat, depending. So they're probably they're usually somebody who's pretty agile and able to do multiple parts. And it was like for that movie, they're like, nope, just Sir John Mills. And we're gonna like barely get him out there.
I'd say that's a bit of I would say let's throw that as a conspiracy theory then. I'd say there was a lot of blowback and people were not happy that Grizabella was the cat that came back. And they said, you know what? Let's really reinforce that and let's walk a 90-year-old who can't see out on stage, and let's not have him. Let's make him watch him. Maybe he'll drop dead on the stage and he still won't win.
Yeah. The most consistent argument non-Grizabella is for Gus. I think that's the most rational argument. It's not the one I've made the most because it's not the most fun, but it's the most rational argument. I definitely get it. And I respect everybody who agrees it's anybody that's not Grizabella.
Okay.
So how can we find you, see you on social media, watch your show? Like, give us the deets on how we can stay in touch.
I'm mostly on Instagram for the most part at the Meghan Hanley. That's where I am for the most part for now. Things are starting to pick up a little more stand-up wise, still doing a lot of Zoom stuff, some outdoor shows, but hopefully in the next 6 weeks or so, I'll start to have a schedule again, but we'll see.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on, for humoring me with all the sports talk, and giving us this your amazing experience seeing this wild show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thanks everyone else for listening to this episode of The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.